What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Easy Button Investor Podcast. I am your host, Cole Ruud-Johnson, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Nathan Robbins. He is the most famous guy that you probably do not know. I'll put it that way. He doesn't have a big social media audience, but he has a big audience. He's been a pivotal key piece in my journey of me being where I am, and I'll go into that. And today's episode is one all about your network. We talk a lot about on the show that people scale faster than anything, and your only true resource. Money comes and goes, opportunities and deals come and go. Relationships, when treated right, handled with care, last a lifetime. So without further ado, let's get right into the show. Welcome, Nate. Man, I'm very grateful to have you on. I'm very excited for the show today. I'm going to let you do your own bio. I could go a lot of ways with your background, but if you want to give the people a 2 to 5 minute blurb of just high level who you are, why you're so cool, why everyone loves you, we'll start there.
It's the hair. That's basically it, man. Just if you have cool hair, people think you're cool. Yeah, no, I really would be interested to know what you would say about my bio, but the Cliff Notes version.
Not good things.
The Cliff Notes version is a lot of years I was in the financial services industry. So I was a private client banker. I met a really successful investor up here in the Pacific Northwest named Tarl Yarber. And he just happened to come I was at this really weird point in life, pretty frustrated with my career at the bank, and randomly met this guy. We had a conversation. I was helping him with a business account. That one little conversation, which we can go in depth on that whole thing as well, because really I shouldn't be here. Just this random conversation turned into a longer conversation, which turned into an opportunity to leave the financial services industry and get into real estate and work with one of the best investment companies in the Pacific Northwest. And probably, I would say, even the nation. I think there's a lot of special things that we did. And so left banking, got into that. We were doing probably 30 to 40 projects a year here up in the Seattle, Tacoma market. And I fell into the role, or kind of got into the role of acquisitions for that company. So I was in charge of everything from lead gen, seller negotiation, contracts, and then onboarding the property to the team. Did that since 2016. That kind of morphed into events. And so we created the largest real estate expo conference on the West Coast called the Pacific Northwest Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo. Raised a bunch of money for charity, had thousands of people in attendance, really special event. And then COVID happened. Maybe you've heard of it. That changed our business model. And we've now partnered with Ken McElroy and Robert Kiyosaki to do the Limitless Expo, which was in Scottsdale the last couple of years and now is in Dallas. One of the best events in the nation, no sales, all just extreme amounts of content from people that are actually in the industry doing it. This year's Limitless Expo is going to be incredible. I don't know if I'm allowed to even talk about like some of the people we have coming. Actually, no, Tarl posted it.
Robert Kennedy Jr. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, RFK is coming this year. We just confirmed yesterday. So it's going to be a stellar lineup. Predominantly doing events now, still wholesale, have a couple Airbnbs, couple properties, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of what I do, so my bread and butter is, and the thing that I enjoy most is wholesaling. So if you want to, go deep on seller negotiations or, whatever that is, that's kind of where I still Jones out on that kind of stuff. So,
and fitness challenges.
Yeah, just got done with a fitness challenge, which seems to be becoming a thing. I never thought myself as a fitness influencer, but here I am. In all seriousness, was it last November? I thought I was dying. No energy. I was taking 4 naps a day. I just couldn't function, and I knew I had to do something. So I started a fitness challenge with some really close friends. Your listeners probably know some of them, like Brandon Turner, Ryan Murdoch, a lot of those guys. And so it was a 6-month challenge based on 3 things: 10,000 steps a day, eat your ideal weight in protein, and work out 5 days a week. 3 of those have to be weights. And then between November and then June of this year, I lost 26 pounds. So I got my health back under control. And so then we now have like 19 other people that were like, hey, I need to do that. And so now we have a group of about 34 people doing round 2. So I'm excited for that. We're going to go to Belize here in a couple of months and have a good time. So yeah, it's life is good, man. The highlight of my life though is the fact that I met you and you're still my friend. So
yeah, dude, talk about, you said a word there earlier on in your journey, one conversation and then how that changed your life, right? So the topic of today's show, guys, getting into network, right? Nate and I are both probably where we are because of a network and building a network in real life, not social media. And I always tell people Nate's the most well-known guy, not on social media. He's on social media, but not really cranking out content at the rate a lot of people are. And he'll talk about that soon. But for me personally, when I was brand new in my journey, I was probably 10, 20 deals in. somewhere in that range. I went to a conference. Before Thatch even had a big audience, and Nate and Taro stood up to ask a question, and they were kind of somewhat part of the event. They kind of were acknowledged as they were a big player there, and I had known who they were. I sent them the normal before that Facebook, Instagram message of, hey, let's get coffee, blah, 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 like a lot of you guys do. And I saw them stand up, and I'm like, man, fuck, I really want to get to know these guys. And I didn't at the event, but that night I went to LA Fitness, and I was on a treadmill. I forget who was on the treadmill first. I think you were on the treadmill first. Is that the story? I don't forget.
I have no idea. I was not paying attention.
I forget who made the first move, but
you made the first move.
one of us was on a treadmill. We were actually on treadmill side by side, and we had a conversation. And I was a nerd at the time. I started showing him our CRM and a bunch of weird stuff that we did to find deals. And he said, "This is awesome. I'll get you a meeting with Taro." I didn't believe it, but a couple days later, a week or two later, we all met at a Starbucks in Issaquah. I remember it vividly. It was in Issaquah, Washington, and from there, a partnership with them formed, which is why I'm sitting where I am right now. I did some deals with them that led to me honestly, before I even really had the credentials to go, it led me to getting invited to their private mastermind in Maui with Brandon Turner, the first one he did out there, where I got to meet close friends and business partners of mine now, James Daynard, AJ Osborne, all these, Ryan Panay, a lot of these really cool guys. And I was 21, so definitely pretty young to be in that room. And a lot of those guys, most people from there, that event, I still talk to daily, and I still see multiple times a year, which is awesome. That was all from meeting Nate on a treadmill. What you kind of learn and what you find out is, especially in entrepreneurship and in real estate, the market's cyclical. Your bank account will be cyclical. I know so many guys in this business that are rich and they're poor, then they're rich and they're poor, and they lose it all, they get it back. That's kind of the merry-go-round we're all on. But the one thing I've noticed from people that have really big businesses and really big lives are the network they've been able to build around them. For me, starting out at 19, 20, the reason I've been able to get to where I am by 26 is because I can pick up my phone no matter what issue I am facing in my life. If everything went to zero today, I lost every dollar to my name, had to file bankruptcy, I'm probably 1 or 2 phone calls away, just depending on who answers first. Places to stay in almost any part of the country, from endless opportunities of jobs and resources. To me, that's true wealth, right? Because the money, the watches, the cars, those come and go. I know guys that are on top of the world a couple of years ago that are struggling to make ends meet. The guys that I know that are really built, the things that I admire, have these networks. And it's not a social media, it's not praising each other on social media, although sometimes it is, but it's the phone calls and the conversations that you have and what that turns into. So that's my story of how my first interaction led me to kind of where I am, and the event where I met a lot of the guys that I'm still close with. But I want to turn it back over to Nate, because as cool as that story is, I think Nate's story of the network he's built, and Nate is, I would say, on a text message and phone call basis with pretty much every single who's who in real estate. And not just that, but he hosts their events. He's emceeing their events. If there is a party or a networking event, he's either coordinating it and running it, or he is there front and center. He is kind of the person that makes things happen in the shadows in the real estate world, from events to conferences to connections and relationships. So, Nate, why don't you talk about kind of the web you've built, right? We coined it your kind of $1 billion inner circle, because the reality is that it's the people just in your inner circle are probably combined worth a couple $1 billion. But also, I think it's kind of like Steve Sims, right? The guy that was in Maui that one time with us. You're kind of like the real estate version of the blue fish business.
Yeah.
Why don't you dive into that?
I think I owe a lot. I should start by saying this. I owe a lot to Taro, right? So for you guys who don't know, look up Taro Yarber. Really, everything that I have today, in large part, is because of meeting Taro. And that event should never have happened. Like, the chances of that happening are just so small. And so there's an extreme amount of gratitude I have towards Taro and taking advantage of that moment, being able to recognize that moment and taking it. And I tell people a lot, like 6 months before my conversation with Taro, I was rushing into the bank. If I'd met him then, I would have turned down any opportunity, because I just thought I was like just unstoppable. If he would have come in 6 months later, I wouldn't have been there. There's like this 1 year window where it was just got to be really, really bad for me. And so I was a private client banker, and so I really wasn't supposed to pull people automatically from the lobby. And I just got to this point where I was so frustrated that day. I just randomly saw this guy randomly standing in the lobby all by himself. Another banker didn't get him. Like, there was just so many little things that could have happened that I do not know to this day how that happened. And then having the courage to recognize, like, hey, this is a real opportunity. You have to do it. And I just got to the point when he's like, hey, I'll give you a 90-day contract. I was on a pretty successful path. I was on a pretty good path as far as banking is concerned. To have the courage to say, like, hey, here's a 90-day contract. You could fail. You could be jobless in 90 90 days and to have the courage to take that. And so I owe a lot to that opportunity and seeing that opportunity. And it's like, it's funny, Cole, because you're talking about the Maui Mastermind. Like I almost didn't go to that. Like I was just like so focused on work. I was like, I don't want to do some mastermind. This is dumb. And then that also became like a kind of a real pivotal moment. Was all those friends have become now good friends.
That I know there's been more Maui Masterminds since then, but that core group of people, it's crazy what they've accomplished, the relationships that have come from that. It's still wild to me this day.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's something very special about that group, and any one of these masterminds that have developed, they've kind of all formed their own cohesive core. There's something special about the OG group, and now there's a lot of bleed over in between the groups and stuff, and so there's something super special about that. Like for me, I think there's a tendency for like a lot of people to want to fangirl over people. And for me, I just, I've been thinking a lot about this the last couple of days, and the fact that like I just treat people like as friends. Like I don't actually talk about a lot of business. I talk about everything but business. And I probably don't leverage my network the way I probably should in a lot of ways. Like you, I could call, I could make a phone call to figure out pretty much anything or find out any resource or do whatever. So I'm very fortunate in that way. But predominantly my calls are around other things other than business. And so I just have kind of set out, this is kind of who I am. I just want to be your friend. Let's just be friends. And if something comes out of that, or if I can help you, then let's do that. But I feel very, very fortunate to have the friends in the circle that I have at the moment. So I wasn't sure if there's like a specific question.
No, I'll stop you for a second because I think you just highlighted a good point, because a lot of people are going to be watching this going, how do I build a network? And Nate's not talking about it here because that's not who he is. He's not a boastful guy. But when I say he could make a phone call or text message and get pretty much anything done, the biggest names from Brandon to Ken to Robert, all these guys, they've built the closest with Nate. And the reason is because of what he just said. The same has been true for me. Once you're an adult, you usually start a relationship a lot of times on the business side, right? So that can be in a mastermind, an event, whatever it is. There's some kind of mutual benefit to wherever you are. That could be an event, again, a mastermind. That's why it's so important to go to these masterminds and to go to Limitless Expo and all these other things, because you have to meet someone first. And then with the people that I noticed have big networks on, they focus on the personal side. The reason I become really good friends with a lot of the same people is because after you meet them and you get to know them, 99% of the world focuses on what they can take from people. And if you show up every single day and figure out what you can give to people, it changes the dynamic and it sticks with them, and they want to lift you up. Because the reality is, once you get to a certain amount of money and a certain amount of net worth and a certain amount of deals, the only thing that really drives meaning for a lot of very successful people is reaching behind them and helping other people do the same thing, right? That's why I'm very anti, like, why do people do coaching and consulting and events? And because the reality is, a lot of those guys don't need money. Their impact comes from network and community and people. A lot of the guys, like one of my really close friends, mentors, business partners, James Daynard, like when you meet a lot of these guys, 99.9% of the world just wants to take from them, take job opportunities from them, take deal opportunities from them, take clients from them, pick their brains and take their time away from their families and what they have going on. And what I think Nate just highlighted, it seems cliche, but if you're likable, meaning you're not boastful, you're not a dick, because at the end of the day, most people you want to know that have big companies and big lives, you're actually behind closed doors. They're not sitting on, like when I'm sitting on James's yacht, we're not really talking about business. We're more sitting up at midnight at the Maui Mastermind with all of us. Like, we're not really talking about deals, right? You learn a lot because people will bring it up, and you really learn the psychology behind how they built what they've built. And to get in those rooms, again, you have to be likable. You can't be a taker. You got to be a giver. And that doesn't look like being weird and texting and calling people every day, like harassing them. But it means that when someone answers the phone for you or you call them, you don't start the conversation with, hey, you start the conversation with, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? And you spend time getting to know them and their life and their situation, and you invest in in-person stuff too. You fly out and meet them, right? Like early on in my journey, when I was trying to build relationships with people, I was on planes all the time. I was going to every mastermind, and that changes. Like, but I was being diligent in how I invested my time into these people and relationships. So it's not something you can gamify. You have to genuinely care about people at the end of the day to do this. And a lot of people don't, especially, and the reason it stands out and you can build a network very quickly is most people don't. They care about themselves and their pocketbook, and they think short term that way. So, well, thank you guys for sticking around for another episode of the Easy Button Investor Podcast. Again, we had Nate Robbins with us today. Again, the most famous guy that's not famous. I'll put it that way. As always, you guys, we don't put paid ads behind the show. So you telling a friend, a family member, posting on your story, which a lot of you have been recently, is how we grow. And also, we don't sell you things on the show, right? It's pure value and helping you grow your business. So until next time, as I always say, you are only one deal away.